William Blake was born on November 28, 1757 in London, England. He died on August 12, 1827 in London, England. Blake was mostly educated at home by his mother, but later he became more educated in the art of sketching and engraving. Blake studied engraving and loved Gothic art, which he incorporated into some of his own works, such as this plate. Blake published Songs of Experience, The Chimney Sweeper, in 1794.
The Chimney Sweeper from Songs of Experience by William Blake. A little black thing among the snow, crying weep, weep in the notes of woe. Where are thy father and mother? Say, they are both gone up to the church to pray. Because I was happy upon the heath and smiled among the winter snow, they clothed me in the clothes of death and taught me to sing the notes of woe. And because I am happy and dance and sing, they think they have done me no injury, and are gone to praise God and his priest and king, who make up a heaven of our misery.
The imagery for this poem, if you ask me, it's a little weird, but everyone's got their own opinions about it. See, back in those days, they talked about kids going to work real young, and this probably symbolizes him getting off work, as you can tell. Of course, you associate chimneys with smoke, which is hence why you have flames and smoke on this side of the picture. Smoke's not really clean, and neither is chimney work. That's why it explains, like, him wearing black and death. Of course, we've all heard of black lung, diseases like that, so it's probably something that went along with this. Other than that, you see flames and other smoke up top, which symbolizes really the same thing. And then you see the snow on the ground, which more symbolizes winter. And him walking through the snow, it just, talking about a heaven of our misery, is pretty much sounds like him walking from work, because really, what kid wants to sweep chimneys all day? Anyway, walking back like that, it just makes you look back and think, dang, I'm glad I don't have to do that.
William Blake was disgusted with the chimney sweeping, as it was a filthy and unhealthy business in the late 18th century. Young boys beginning chimney sweeping as young as the age of 4 were forced to clean chimneys because of their small size. They could easily climb up the chimneys, but it often resulted in broken limbs and even death. Blake uses this poem to criticize society in general, as it was acceptable for young children to work in such harsh conditions at such a young age. Iambic tetrameter is used in this poem. This creates an odd number of syllables. Iamb stressed syllables and unstressed syllables are used to create the iambic tetrameter. Blake uses rhyme schemes in each of his 3 4-line stanzas. Stanza 1 has an AABB rhyme scheme. As it says here, a little black thing among the snow, crying weep, weep in notes of woe. Why, where are thy mother and father? Say, they are both gone up to the church to pray. This is AABB rhyme. In the second stanza, CACA rhyme is used. Because I was happy upon the heath and smiled among the winter snow, they clothed me in the clothes of death and taught me to sing the notes of woe. So that's CACA rhyme. And in
Alright, the parents leave the chimney sweeper and go to church. They leave him to work out in the cold. And the chimney sweepers usually died young because of the really bad conditions. So you kind of wonder if the parents care or not, because they just leave him to go to church and do their own thing while he's out in the snow and the cold.
And he said, and because I'm happy and dance and sing, they think they have done me no misery. So that means he could have been really childish and was playing out in the streets, enjoying himself, and his parents thought he was fine. But really, how little kids just play and don't think about the consequences of the future. So the parents just left him. How bad is that?
On the left is the Songs of Innocence, the Chimney Sweeper, and on the right is the Chimney Sweeper, Songs of Experience. You can tell by the photo that in the left, the illustration is much more joyful, and in the Songs of Experience version.
Basically, back in the Romantics' time, they always valued childhood. I mean, imagine when we were kids. Every day we would get up, we would play till our heart's content, and then we'd go to sleep. Well, back then, a lot of people really, you did that until you were a certain age, until you basically understood what to do. Then you went to work, hence the chimney sweep. In the terms, in the poem, he used the terms weep. And really, at that age, kids couldn't really pronounce a lot of everything correctly, so he probably meant sweep. Well, back then, children were basically treated like garbage. I mean, the life expectancy for a chimney sweep was short anyway, especially a child that was a chimney sweep. So, in the end, they weren't really valued that well. Unlike today, we're a little bit more romantic with everything. We believe in childhood, education is number one, always. We just make sure the children have a good life, grow up, and be happy. But back in those days, that wasn't valued. You were basically there to work and do what you were told. So it's a different time between now and then, but it's pretty interesting to compare how far we've come in that short period of time and how everything has uprisen from that. And especially now, since we have like child labor laws, you're not allowed to work anywhere until I believe you're 16 years old, and even then it's only part-time. So it's funny to see how things have come and how the Romantics have kind of changed society ever since then. But in the end, it's not that bad.
The Songs of Innocence version of the Chimney Sweeper was more popular than the Songs of Experience. The Songs of Innocence version of this poem was more comforting. Children read it and their parents wanted them to know that they needed to do the right thing. Sort of a poem that encouraged behaving. And this poem was more to explain to people the bad conditions of these young children who were being forced to work. And it was in the hope by Blake to improve these conditions and help these young children that were being forced to work. This is the Songs of Innocence version in the Chimney Sweeper. And just to explain how much lighthearted this poem was. This poem was so much more lighthearted than the Chimney Sweeper Songs of Experience. I'm going to read it to explain. When my mother died, I was very young, and my father sold me while yet my tongue could scarcely cry, weep, 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 weep. So your chimneys I sweep, and in soot I sleep. There's little Tarn Darce, who cried when his head, that curled like a lamb's back, was shaved. So I said, hush, Tom, never mind it, for when your head's bare, you know that the soot cannot spoil your white hair. And so he was quiet, and that very night, as Tom was a-sleeping, he had such a sight, that thousands of sweepers, Dick, Joe, Ned, and Jack, were all of them locked up in the coffins of black. And by came an angel who had a bright key, and he opened the coffins and set them all free. Then down a green plain leaping, laughing, they run, and wash in a river and shine in the sun. Then naked and white, all their bags left behind, They rise upon clouds and sport in the wind. And the angel told Tom if he'd be a good boy, he'd have God for his father and never want joy. And so Tom awoke, and we rose in the dark and got with our bags and our brushes to work. Though the morning was cold, Tom was happy and warm. So if all do their duty, they need not fear harm. This last line kind of explains how Blake was trying to blame society for the acceptance of the chimney sweepers, of the young child workers. And so he says, so if all do their duty, they need not fear harm. He kind of explains this, sounds almost like a threat to make people want to help these children, kind of make their conscience, make them feel like they have a guilty conscience and they need to help these children, and so that they will not fear harm, as Blake said. The young chimney sweepers wore black because the soot was the color black. The chimney sweepers did not go wearing white because it would just ruin their clothes while cleaning the chimneys. And so the clothes of death means black. It means that black is a color that the deceased wear. And this is what the child means when he says, they clothed me in the clothes of death. And because I'm happy and dance and sing, again, he's childish, he's playing. He doesn't understand his future, the terrible things that he's going to go through. And so he's a child, he just wants to play and be happy. And his parents go to church to praise God. And that last line, who make up a heaven of our misery, it really, the songs of experience really shows how difficult it was for these children who make up a heaven of our misery, which is what that last line means. If you look at the illustration that was done by Blake, it really is a sad depiction of the chimney sweepers. He's out in the cold, he's filthy, he's alone, there's smoke going up the side of the page. That symbolizes the pollution in the city. And if you look at the child, he's out all alone, looking for work, so filthy, out in the cold. William Blake was far ahead of his time. He was, like many romantics, they wanted to embrace childhood and appreciate childhood, because childhood is a special time. And a lot of people during this period, as soon as children were old enough to learn to obey, as young as 4 years old, they were expected to go to work. And Blake really was ahead of his time when he saw that this was wrong, and he wanted people to appreciate childhood and make better conditions for the chimney sweepers, because there were a lot of health issues and especially death with these young children that were forced to work by cleaning chimneys.
The Chimney Sweeper by William Blake from Songs of Experience. A little black thing among the snow, crying weep, weep in notes of woe. Where are thy father and mother? Say, they are both gone up to the church to pray. Because I was happy upon the heath and smiled among the winter snow, they clothed me in the clothes of death and taught me to sing the notes of woe. And because I am happy and dance and sing, they think they have done me no injury, and are gone to praise God and his high priest and king, who make up a heaven of our misery.